Hey, this is part 3 of chapter 3 and the exercise with it, and I want to talk to you about the things that are continuing on the bottom of page 175 and going over 176 over here with it, number 3. This is not part of your homework, but you need to understand this because, like I said, these are important things that you will see possibly in the future exams that I will give to you with it. So when you look at this for me, if you could, here is you have an input of this line right here, and I'm gonna toggle with you, kind of show you what I basically did was I took a Word document in here. I took a Word document on here, and let me walk you through with what I'm talking to you about is when you have this problem right here. Let me just put this aside here. And we could scroll this so you could see. So you look at this right here, and the number 3, I like for you to do it the way how I show it to you. And this is that if you see that num1, num2 are int, x and y are double variables. So I'm going to come up to this chart over here. I'm just going to start putting in a number up here. Num1, num2. And x and some of this stuff. So this is x and y. Remember that x and y are your doubles in this thing, and you're going to have a string with this coming across here. This is number 3. So if you look at the way how this is written with this, and you will see that when you read in each one of these statements with any of these values with this cin x num1 y and num2 x num1 y num2. Let me do this also. Let's do this so we can actually have another column. Perhaps insert column to the left. I'm going to call this one 3A. How's that? 3A. So what's inside the memory? What's inside the memory is the question here, right? So in num1, when you first read into this thing, it reads in x first. So what's x? X is an int, right? So you look at the int, x is going to read in as what? Read in as x is an int, and this thing is 28. Right? I'm sorry, not 28, 35. I'm reading the wrong one. This one right here is the first number it actually comes across. So it comes across as 35, right? And then you read in the next one, which is num1, and the same. So num1 is what? 28, because num1 is an int, right? It drops off. It does not do this because it's an int. It drops off the decimal and whatever it's to the right of it, and then you reads in y, letter y, this is 3a, y, and reads in what? Y is an int in this thing. So what's going on? It's going to read in the 0.3. Okay? So y is a double, so it reads in the 0.3. Okay? Now it ignores all the decimals behind it. Okay? So it just reads in that, ignores everything decimal behind it. So this is y, and then reads in num1, num2. Num2 is an int, so what's the next int that's going to be reading in is what? 67. Okay, so it reads in as 67 with this thing. Let's do the next one so you get the hang of this thing. 3b, and you're going to look at this thing as cin num1 again. Again, it's going to read num1's what? Num1, easy enough, is 35. It's the first one that comes across this, right? So num1's 35. So and then it reads in the next one is x. X is what? X is a double, if you recall, right? So it's going to read in x, which stores what? Your entire 28.3. It just drops off that 0. So in your x field with this thing, I want you to make sure you put it in right 28.3 with it. And then it reads in your num2, which is what? 67, right? So 67 goes here, right? And then it reads in y, which is your double, so it reads in, here's your y. So 12.5, that's what that goes in. Come down here, take a look at the next one. We'll do a few of these things so you get the hang of this thing, right? So in here, what's going on here? So let me move this over. So inside of this, right, so here you have Cn. Again, x is an int in this case, right? So in x, it reads in x first, and then y, and then num1, and then num2, right? So your x is going to be written as 35, and then it reads in y as an int. What's that one? So that's going to be, no, y is a double, I'm sorry, y is a double, so it becomes 28.3, right? And then it reads in num1, in this case, will be what? 67. And then reads in num2 is what? 12. Why 12? Because num2 is an int. 12.5, the 0.5 will be dropped off. Okay? So make sure you understand how that works with it. Next one is 3D. Okay? Same thing. Num1, num2 are int, x, and y are your doubles. So what's num1? Num1 is what starts to read in here is 35. And then num2 reads in the 28. And then, because remember now, 28.3, because num2 is an int, just drops off the decimal. And then it reads in the x. X becomes what? X becomes your 0.3. Right? And then it reads in your y is what? 67. Okay? The whole 67 with it. So that's your 67 over here. Okay? Look at E. 3E. I'll check the time on this thing. So, a couple more. Alright, 3E. E says, I want you to read in num1, x, y, and num2. Again, what's num1 is an int, so it reads in 35. Reads in x is a double, reads in the 28.3, does not include the trailing zeros. And then reads in the next one is y is what? Is a double, and 67, you can do a 67. I'm sorry, I got this in the wrong place. This is your x. And reads in your x over here is 67, right? And then num2 reads in as what? Num2 is reading as the 12 again. Okay, the 12. So here's your 12. Okay. What do you notice? All these are all int. These are your doubles here. Okay. Last one. X reads in. X is what? X is your double, so it reads in the, this is letter 3, A, B, C, D, E, F. X is what? You read in this thing as 35, right? That's your X. Now, when you read in your num1, what's num1? Num1 is an int, so it takes in the 28, right? What's num2? Num2 is an int, but it's trying to read in the decimal. And what happens? It chokes, right? It stops right there because it's trying to read. It's trying to read the decimal part. All right, as or what's called the period of this thing into num2, and this will cause an error. Okay, and it just stops right there. Okay, so that's what I want to talk to you about.